Welcome back to Hefe Hot Rods. If you haven't been here before, my name's Adam. I'm just a regular guy with no particular amount of skills, money, time, or all the right tools to build old cars and trucks. But I'm here to show you that you don't need all that stuff. You can figure it out if you're willing to just take your time, use the Google, and depend on trial and error. This is my 57 Chevy on a 97 chassis. Come on along this week as we finally get a cooling system in it that's almost complete. We got to get some electric fans wired up because we just don't have any space for a regular cooling system. Here we go. So today we're going to get back to work on the 5797 truck. That's 57 body on a 97 chassis and firewall. And we're really close to getting this truck on the road, taking it for some serious test drives. But we need cooling fans, we need gauges, and we need lights. So we're going to get started on some of that stuff today. First order of business is going to be cooling fans. I have had these for a while. I just ordered Amazon cooling fans for it. Let me show you why I did what I did. So you can see there's not a lot of room here. I've got enough room behind this. I don't have enough room between the water pump and the radiator to put a full-size fan back there. So my compromise was I'm going to put one in front and one in back. Now I read that if they were like this, it could restrict the flow. So we're going to put them, so if they were directly across from each other like that, it could restrict the flow. So we're going to put them offset like that. And I've made cardboard templates in past videos and laid it out so that we should be good to set them up like that. I know that they'll fit. Alright, so we're going to put the little one on the back side because that's where there's less room, and we'll put the big one on the front side. These are reversible. You have to reverse polarity on the wiring, and then you also have to zip this off and flip it over so that the blades are going the right way for science and wind and stuff. So let's reverse that first. Let me go find the right socket. I don't know if you can see it, but this has got two flat sides on it. I hope I didn't just mess myself up. So that should only sit on there one way. There it goes. In theory, that should work. All right. Now we got to zip that front panel off and get access to the front of the radiator. Why? Is this how today is going to go? I think if I remember right, my intention was to go like that with the front one, and then something like this with the back one. That was also the big one. I think they're the same brand and everything, so I don't expect there'll be a difference, but try and use the right ones with the right ones. So I don't really know why we need these when we have these. Maybe we don't. I guess those go something like that, since there's little cones down in these mounting holes. And then these will feed through like this. And then we'll put a piece of foam pad against the radiator on one side. They are adhesive back. So I guess that's for the radiator side. When I went to look this up online, nobody shows you, oh, hey, here's how you actually mount these. They're like, no, just put it in there. Oh, okay. I think these are probably only intended to go to have the locking piece lock on one time, because I don't know how you'd release that without breaking it. So try and be careful about getting it in the right spot before we lock it in. Okay, there's 2 of them on. Only 6 more to go, and then wiring. Onward! Okay, so what I think is the easy part is done. The fans are in. You can see the springs are right there. They kind of tuck into the bracket. There's a cone inside that bracket that accepts them. I wish those fit a little better on this one. They fit good on the other one. And then, so you've got, this is the other end of this guy. Going through that way, through the spring, through the foam pad next to the radiator. And then when it comes out the other side of the radiator, there's another foam pad and a little cap that holds it in place. Seems pretty straightforward, but when you get all these loose pieces in the package and no instructions, you're like, oh, what am I going to do with this? Anyway, that part's done. Now we'll trim these ends off and get some wiring done. So we've got both ends. We've got just positive and ground for both of these, and in the interest of keeping things simple, I bought myself a kit off the Amazon, and this kit comes with a sensor to tell it what the temperature of the engine is, a bunch of connectors and fuses, relays, inline fuses for the fans, connectors to go on the relays, and everything's already pre-wired. You could do this yourself, put together the pieces, pretty cheap. This one, I wanted the sensor and the automatic turn on, turn off with it. So that's why I did this the way I did. So here we go. We're going to trim those off and then we'll work on wiring this up. Okay, looks like I was talking to a camera that was off again for a while, so let me catch up on where we're at. Put this little sender in there, the shiny part, wrapped it up in white tape, Teflon tape before we put it in there, on the adapter and on the sensor itself. Twisted the wires together with a drill. I've never tried that before. It's kind of cool. I think it looks nice. I wish they were a little longer, but we'll worry about that later if I decide to change something. And yeah, so the sender's in, the fans are hooked up. Now we just need to hook up the other end of the fans. Key on power to the gray wires and battery power to the red wires. And all that runs through the relays. It's pre-wired. That's part of why I bought the kit, so I don't have to figure it out. Not that you can't, it's pretty simple, but it was nice to already have all the connectors and everything on there so that it all comes in one chunk. So, all right, here we go on the rest of it. We'll hook those two up. I got to figure out where key on power is. I've already found my battery power. It's going to be right here. So we'll take off that stud for battery power. Just connect these guys. We'll shorten them up, maybe twist them together so they look a little nicer. And then we'll find key power, and then we'll fire it up and see if it'll get warm enough to kick the fans on. Let's see. So I couldn't find any key on power out there under the hood. I know I've got a few of them marked under here. Actually, it turned out there was only one marked key on power, but that's all I really need. So I'm going to run it under here. We're just going to connect this one with a bullet connector so I can disconnect it if I decide to do it different or extend these wires or something. And then we'll go from there. It starts popping fuses, so you can see all the old stuff I marked as I found it. That one says key on 12 volts. So that should be good for that. And I think that's the last connection we got to make. There's another, you can put a toggle switch in line to provide ground, just like the temperature override, or the temperature sender will. You just key into these and then run it to a switch inside and ground it. Ground it on the other side of the switch. I haven't done that. I probably should do that. I probably will do it down the road. But that way, if that sender ever failed and didn't want to ground out, you could ground it manually and just turn the fans on manually. But then you got to remember to turn them off manually, or they'll run until your battery's dead. So let's fire it up and see if she'll get warm enough to run the fans. Probably need to put fuses in the power wires or they won't power up nothing. Now they should come on when it's hot enough. I think we're working. We didn't have a good ground right there, but I just snugged it up a little more. I think it's better. May have to change how that sits. You see how it wants to bubble that up. They may be pushing that off the contact. May have to add a washer or something in there to make sure it snugs down the way it should. But it's working now. Let's see what our temperature's doing. Yeah, probably 180, 190. That's pretty good for idle. And it shouldn't get, I mean, it's going to get hotter when the temperature outside gets hotter, but idle's about the worst condition for these because there's no air coming across the radiator except for what the fans are pulling. So I'm pretty happy with that. I guess let's see what happens when we shut the key off. And I got big fans running now because I can't just open the doors because Tweedledee and Tweedledum will run off on me. But yeah, they shut off when the key goes off. And if I turn the key on, do they just come back on because it's hot enough? I bet they do. I guess we need to let it run and see if it'll cool it down enough to shut them off. That'll be... So that one's back on. That one's back on. Let's see if it'll cool them down enough to shut them off. I think they go on at 185 and off at 165. This is one of my biggest concerns with this truck, is trying to keep that big block cool because of the limited space. They're moving some air. Staying pretty steady. I could put one of the big fans in front of it to help with airflow across the radiator, but I kind of want to see what it does at idle, because again, it's a worst case scenario. Sitting in traffic or sitting there, I probably wouldn't idle it this long on purpose. So, see what you do. Alright, I'm back from lunch. I did some reading, did some looking for different fans. You know, the beginning of this was a success in that the fans turned on with a controller. They both worked, they both mounted up. We didn't have any leaks as a result of the fans. But a failure in that it will not cool it down at idle to the point where the fans will shut off. I think the problem is we don't have enough fan, so I'm going to have to get a bigger fan. I have to mount it as a pusher because I just don't have the room to mount it as a puller. And I know from my interwebs research that a pusher is not as efficient as a puller. So if it's pushing this way and then the little puller is pulling that way, the problem is, let me get a light on this. The problem is I don't have the room behind it for a puller because we are right up against the water pump. Like that little fan barely clears it. So, I was doing the best I could. I also read that it's not efficient for them to overlap one another or for them to take up the same space if one's pushing, one's pulling. I'm hoping that we can get away with some overlap. That's kind of what I'm thinking now. I'm not sure that there's enough room in there to put even a solid mounted fan on it. That crossed my mind. I used to have a whole stack of fans. And when we moved, I threw them all out because I thought, I'm always taking them off. I'm never putting them back on. Right now, I wish I had one to just try to see if it would fit. Because I'd be okay with running a solid mounted fan if it would keep the engine cool. And I think a stock cooling system for this truck would probably be plenty. So what I'm going to do now is try to determine if we're close. Like if we had a little airflow from going down the road, would that be enough for it to cool the way it needs to with these two fans? If that's the case, then maybe just going a little bigger with one of them or both of them, I can accomplish what I need to do. So I kicked the dogs out. They stayed in the house in the air conditioning. They did not put up a fight. Open that door. Open that door. So we've got plenty of room for exhaust to get out. I'm going to put the two fans I have functioning in front of the truck to provide a little cross flow. It won't be like doing 70 miles an hour, but maybe it'll be like doing 30. And we're just going to see what happens, see how it works. Here we go. So we'll probably let it get up to operating temp to where they kick on first, and then we'll turn the fans on. So with some added airflow, like you're going down the road, it's not getting hot. It's staying right about 155 to 165 based on the gauge, but it's not cooling down enough to shut the fans off either. So I think what that means is if we had a little more airflow, meaning a bigger fan on one of these or both, we'll try one first. We might have enough. So I think what I'm going to do is order a 16-inch. I found a couple 16-inch 3,000 plus CFM rated fans that are reversible. We'll mount it on the front. If I have to cut some of this stuff out to make it fit, well, that's what we'll have to do. And we'll refigure it after that. We'll figure out how to deal with it. But, I mean, it doesn't do any good to have a truck that I can't drive. So, would it be okay right now? 76 degrees? Yeah, probably, as long as we didn't sit and idle anywhere too long. But it regularly gets over 100 in Texas, and I would like to be able to use it whenever I want to use it. So, we got to figure out a better cooling system. But we got wins and losses here. It's definitely not a total loss. It's definitely not a win. But we did get it wired so that the fans come on like they're supposed to. The switch works. The fans work. And we're just not done with it like I'd hoped to be today. So I'll order a bigger fan. And we'll put that in, and I'll just plug it into this controller. I don't see why I wouldn't. And then we'll try again. And I'm also going to order some gauges, just like a triple gauge set probably, just so I can monitor what the engine's doing without having the goofy OBS instrument cluster plugged in there. So we'll come back to the cooling system. Kind of a win because I can use it around the yard now because I do have cooling fans. We'll probably run it up and down the driveway a little bit. So we'll move on to some other stuff and come back to this once I've got more parts and pieces. Yeah. So until next time, remember we appreciate you watching. Check out some of the other videos on this truck, see how we got it where it is. And as always, remember, if I can do it, you can do it. Sometimes it takes more than one try though, so we'll be back at it next week.
Interrupt this program to bring you loud static.
As you can see, I got the new big fan in, and I've been working on making it fit. I had to pull the grill out. This used to go all the way across here, cut that out, and we had to trim a little bit here so that we no longer have angle all the way across. We only have it between there and there. It's opened up so that we can mount this fan about like so. And that should make it clear all the other stuff, the hood latch and all that. So we just need to attach it and hook up the wiring and see if it'll cool it. Here we go. Test time. It's cooling it, but it's not cooling it enough to make the fan shut off on its own. So I'm going to add the big fan in front of it to simulate airflow like we were going down the road. We'll see if that'll do it enough to make the fan shut off. Well, I don't think we're going to get her to cool to the point where it'll shut off with this particular switch. I may have to get an adjustable one because it was down low enough that I feel like it was acceptable. The other catch is it's only 72 degrees today, and we're going to have to deal with 100 plus during the summertime, and I'd like to still be able to use it occasionally, although without AC that's going to be right unpleasant. So good enough to use it for now, yes. Good enough for good, not really, but we can work on it as we go like we are everything else on it. So we're going to call that good for this round. We've got enough cooling to drive it up and down the road and do stuff around the yard for sure. So let's get the lights working, and I don't know, I got a list of stuff, right? So once I put the grill and stuff back in, I think we'll be able to cross off fans. We won't do it yet, but we'll be doing it soon.